Sorry, I got disconnected. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. Just a moment. Okay. So again, difference between quantitative and qualitative is like when we are talking about quantitative, right? If I ask you to like rate any Coca-Cola or any kind of fast food you eat, right? You will have different opinions, right? Some of if I rate that, okay, in a scale of 1 to 10, I rate this product, a mobile phone or any kind of thing, right? Most of you will have different opinions, right? Starting from 1 to 10, some of you will rate 1, some of you will 10, some 7, like different numbers, right? So what we're trying to do in quantitative, right? We're looking into the average person, what he or she likes or what is his or her interest area, right? Always look into the average side of it. There will be always outliers, right? But what our aim is to, what is the average intention, right? Average behavior of those customers whom we are going to target, right? Who are our potential customers. But when we're looking into the qualitative side, we're looking into a very small segment of customers, and for each customer, we're doing a deep dive. When I say that, okay, I give a rating of 6 to a product, we're not stopping there. We're asking why 6? What prompted that person or what prompted that consumer to give a rating of 6, not 10 or 8, right? And that is where the focus of getting into a little bit of deep dive, right? The techniques were involved, focus group discussions, then your projective techniques. So that actually a much more applied side happened in 90s, 80s. Started with clinical research or the hospital or the patient research, and same method was applied in the marketing research. Then back in 90s when most of the digitalization or computerization happened, right? Now customers or companies have started to having data about their existing customer, right? Before that, before computers came, we did not have, we have to go to market to collect data, right? There are no database, or like for most of the companies, there is no concept of collecting data or keeping that in a database, right? Now, if you see 90s, when I say 90s, late 90s, basically starting of 2000 when internet boom happened, right? Now, if you see looking into individual customers, if I go and buy something in Amazon today, right? Once I put in my shopping cart, it will show that okay, those customers who bought this also bought that other item, right? It is a simple market basket analysis, right? And those techniques were evolved during the late 90s or 2000, right? Now, again, a lot of changes has happened. People are looking into virtual reality, your machine learning, right? You no longer have to like kind of have that kind of earlier survey methods, right? There are in Europe and USA. Once you go to shopping, they'll give you certain tracker, right? When whatever you are putting in your shopping basket, it will directly inform the inventory. It will say that okay, these are the items. So you no longer have to collect data, process data. As and when customer is purchasing something, your action being taken, right? So somebody is buying certain item, accordingly, like Amazon is taking those like data and sending those. So that is something which will learn in predictive analytics, right? So Amazon actually do that. So during this Christmas, during this Black Friday or holiday seasons, right? So they know that demand will be so high that we will not able to transport all the items during that Christmas season or the shopping season, right? So they predict. So okay, from Bhubaneswar location or for Andhra Pradesh location or from Maharashtra location, last 5 years, what has been consumed or what has been ordered in last 5 years during this season, during the month of December, during the month of October, during the month of November, and they'll try to stockpile, they'll try to order those inventory and keep into your nearest warehouses, right? Imagine the scenario: you have not ordered, customers have not started ordering, but right now already Amazon have stocked up those items, right? So that to that level also we have like kind of Obviously, not all the companies, right? But at least the front runners have evolved to that extent, right? So that is how marketing research is evolving, and that is something which will like once our revision of the few concepts is done, right? Obviously, we're not able to do it in an organizational scale. We do not have that much of computing capacity nor the data point, but we'll try to like kind of do certain real life, right? We'll try to build a website and we'll try to see that how to kind of optimize that, right? Carry out a A/B testing. So that is something which will be interesting, hopefully interesting to you. So again, like any method, it has its success stories, it has its failure stories. So when Agatha Christie books were released, right, early 90s, right, the publisher was HarperCollins. So initial book, the top of the cover, right, on the cover page, were like kind of if you see all those ghastly images, right, horrifying images. And interestingly, nobody bought those books. He was a like kind of the publisher was confident that based on the author's popularity, there will be a huge sale. So they have already printed, right, physical books, right? But nobody like the like initial whatever they had estimated, those number of books were not sold. So they carried out a research, right, qualitative and quantitative. Now what happened? They were happy to read the book, right? They were happy to read the stories, but the front cover was such like gruesome figures, horrifying figures, right? So they are not happy to keep that book in their like library or in the houses, right? So see the interesting connection. I am reading a horror story or I'm reading a suspense story, but I'm not willing to keep the book with a gruesome or that horror image in the cover, right? Because what HarperCollins assumed or the publisher assumed that, right? Because this is a horror story, suspense story, we'll keep a those kind of figures, those kind of images, so that people will be interested to buy that. But it happened otherwise. When they collected data, they came to know that they're interested to read the story. They are interested to travel along with the author to have that suspense in their mind. But they are not willing to look at that images which is lying on that near the bed or near the table, right? And that's why they change those images. Again, the covers were changed. Again, books were circulated, and now the sales increased, right? So that is something which I was talking before, right? Our own assumptions might be incorrect unless we have done that kind of research. Domino's were losing their market share. So I'll not, it will take maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm not going to run the YouTube video. I have provided the link. After the class, whenever you have time, you can go through the link. And it is actual study they did, right? See, those people who are working in the back end, right? So those drivers, those kind of persons who are working in the Domino's outlets, they were of the assumption that they are creating the best pizza in the market. Now, when management came that our sales are declining, so they're telling, no, no, we are building, we are using the same method, we are creating the best pizza in the market. We don't know why people are not buying, right? Then they went on and started asking customers, right? And if you, some of you watch that video, and you will come to know that horrifying comments. People are told like anything to like some of it is like a seat box. Nobody, it is like a cardboard box. Your pizzas are even the like animals will not eat. Like those kind of consumer sentiment was against the Domino's pizza, right? So they came back and showed that to your stakeholders, internal stakeholders, those employees who are preparing those pizzas, right? So they revamped everything from the raw material to the equipment to the processing, cheese processing, everything they changed within I think 9 months to 1 year. And now again they went back to different set of customers. Again, it was a large study across USA. Now customers are happy, right? Because see, their own belief that okay, they are making because they are using good raw material, they have good equipment, but the final product was not coming out good, right? The taste, which is actually for a food like pizza, right, which is evening snacks or kind of a in US at least they take it for anytime there is a sports season and all those things, right? Heavy consumption of those food. If it is not tasting proper, right? What about the consumer's palate, right? It might taste for me, it might be good, but I have to look into what consumers or customers palate like wanting, right? And that is somewhere if you go through that video, you'll come to know that okay, how those changes were made, and they were again like the sales picked up, right? Instagram actually one of the social media product which actually did a proper market is sort of, yeah.
Sir, in the case of Domino's Pizza, sir, the changes took place after taking the survey from the company side or what, sir? It's an internal changes.
Customers.
Okay, sir.
Customers. So Instagram actually started with a lot of like they wanted to replicate existing social media, right? Then they realized that okay, why a customer or why somebody will look into Instagram? There are already same thing like Facebook, Snapchat, and all those things are available. Why somebody will come to Instagram, right? So then they started going to those mostly teenagers or youth in your age group, and they started asking. Same thing with Instagram and Twitter. Both of them had the same approach before launching the product. I think Instagram launched, then they revised. Twitter before launching itself, they went to market. So they went and started asking, what right now you are using this? What are the things if I ask you to change? What are the things you are going to change? Right? And most of the times it looks like that all the existing social medias, even now also, right? Most of the social medias, if you join, it looks like cluttered, right? And that's why Instagram focused on the photo sharing application. Obviously, right now they are like kind of they are getting into many things. But when they started, they realized that whenever because social media is basically sharing something with your friends, your network, all those things. Then it started cluttering, right? Groups were formed and all those things happened, right? News stories, all those things will happen. Now Instagram just started focusing. You can only share photos. Then obviously right now reels and all those things has come. So that is a specific segment, that is a specific area where consumer wanted something only to share their photos. And that is something they created. Same thing happened with Twitter. Twitter looked into Facebook, Twitter looked into Instagram, Twitter looked into other social media, hike and all those things. And then they realized that, okay, if somebody wants to like kind of get certain information, it is very difficult, right? And you generally are using social media to get information. They are not going to traditional newspapers, traditional like books or magazines to read about 100 pages, 20 pages, or 5 pages, right? So they need details or information in very short, right? If they're interested, then they can search on internet, right? So Twitter still has that limit of characters, right? To put a tweet or put a like kind of um, whatever information you are going to share. So that is how, like, if you see, look into those two companies, they looked into two different areas, which existing social media, at least that time, that point of time, were not able to give it to the customers. Instagram just focused on the photo sharing, Twitter information sharing in short paragraphs or a few limited number of lines, right? And those are the two good or best cases of carrying out your consumer research or customer research before launching a product, right? Then obviously there are a lot of hello stories in your different marketing classes. You must have gone through this Coca-Cola failure, right? Sometimes even with your best judgments, right? Even if you they did a customer research, it is not that they did not do, right? Even after doing a solid customer research with lot many customers, right? Coca-Cola did not were able to that launch this product. Again, like there can be many reasons for it, and it is always a hindsight bias to look into future and say that okay, they might have done that kind of mistake. But that point of time when they did a market research, the intentions were good. They went to market, collect data, and the data said that okay, consumers will like that. Basically, they're targeting this mid calorie, right? So they have diet cola, they have the normal classic cola, right? Then some thought came that okay, why we cannot put some product in between, right? Which will be like mid calorie, right? It will be taste like classic cola and it will have less calorie than the kind of your classic cola, standard cola. Intention was good. They went on and it is not that they launched the product without market research. They did a market research. But what happened that based on the market research or the sample, again, there can be many errors in different errors across research process. But the uh, insight what they got, yes, the product will be successful. So the total marketing budget was around $50 million, right? But it failed. The target market segment whom they targeted, basically male uh, kind of consumers, they did not like it, right? And that is something again like the intention of being showing these things. Sometimes even if you get those data right, sometimes things will go bad. Things might not work well. In this particular case, again, it might be other scenarios also. It might happen that right people of those two segment, either people will fall into this health conscious, right? I'll compromise a little bit on taste, but I'll always go into diet cola, or I'll like no matter what happens, I'll go into always classic cola, right? When they went on and saying that the value proposition that would you like a product like this, customers said that yes, but whenever actually they launched the product and the taste was nothing like a classic cola, right? Then they did not like that product, right? Sometimes that is the biggest problem if you talk about marketing research, what customers say and what customers do, right? If I go and ask customers, customer will say something, yes, I'll buy this product, or it looks, it tastes good, it is a great product. But when actually 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, what actually they'll do, that might be different, right? And that is somewhere the fallacy, and some organizations do not actually do the marketing research, saying that obviously anyhow customers can change their attitude, can change their behavior. Why to put money on the marketing research, right? And that is something always, again, there is no like kind of a final decision on that. My idea is always you should have a factor of safety, right? Whenever you are launching any product, it should not be a full-fledged $15 million, $50 million of marketing budget. They could have piloted the product. Any, it is not only for them, for any company having that much of investment based on certain research. Want again, like if it would have succeeded, I would have put in that other slide, right? Success stories. So that is something always debatable. My idea will be it is always better to do a pilot, like go stage wise, launch those products in certain areas, certain key areas. If it is a loss, it is a loss. Maybe $1 million, $2 million, right? But if succeeds, then only you ramp up, right? I think that was one thing they could have done. Same thing with the Amazon's Fire Phone, right? They invested how much? $83 million inventory. That many products were lying in their warehouses. Nobody bought that product, and they did. So they wanted to put themselves something in comparison with iPhone and OnePlus. They had a like kind of a good marketing strategy. They did a marketing research. They understood that okay, there will be customers who are willing to switch from iPhone, who are willing to pay a little bit of less, but like OnePlus does, right? So they basically were targeting something like a being becoming OnePlus, right? But what they did, they actually created a replica of iPhone, like kind of look wise and all those features wise. And now the customers, when you go back, iPhone people buy, like I think most of you know that, right? It is not about the features, right? If I compare iPhone and a similarly priced product, it is about the image they get, right? And unless you establish, and that takes time. So it is not only about the Amazon Fire Phone. Amazon is a e-commerce company. It is not a company which has that kind of image. Okay, holding a Amazon Fire Phone will feel like I'm using that kind of branded product, right? And that is something they did not put that investment. Maybe the timing was wrong because that time already similar kind of OnePlus has been launched. Other phones of similar types were launched from China, right? Maybe they could have done it little before these things like OnePlus or other phones came into market. But again, like we can do a lot of post-mortem after the product failure. But even after doing a proper market research, understanding that customers will be willing to buy this kind of phones. That was a lot of biggest, like if you talk about Jeff Bezos' biggest failure, this was one of the biggest failure for him. Then again, Coca-Cola we have discussed, right? British Airways, right? That is something again like on the power outlets. They did a research back in I think 90s, and they kind of yes, sort of.
Sir, sometimes some companies' product is failure due to the brand ambassador image also, sir. That is also considered it as a marketing research. That is also responsibility of a marketing research team, sir.
Not necessarily. Actually, that is a again like if you have done a marketing research to find out who will be a celebrity sponsorer, who will be a proper like perfect celebrity sponsorer for your company or for your brand, right? And that did not work out. Obviously, that will be marketing research failure. But again, most of the times companies do not do a specific research towards it. It is about the like what the CMO or the CEO wants during that point. Okay, we'll hire Dhoni or we'll hire Sachin Tendulkar or we'll hire let's say Virat Kohli or whichever sports person, right? But yes, to answer your question, few organizations do a like kind of a check, right? Depending upon celebrities, whatever behavior, right? In USA, it happens a lot. Celebrity makes certain comments, right? Uh, and that might be little kind of racially biased or it might be improper. Then now you have to realize whether it has an impact on your brand, negative impact on your brand. If so, then you might have to take a decision to remove the celebrity, right? Some companies do that regularly. They keep a check on depending upon the because celebrity you cannot control it. He is a or she is a sponsor for your brand. That's it, right? People associate certain products with those kind of celebrities, right? And if they have certain bad behavior or bad comments in the public arena, that should not actually affect your brand, right? And some companies regularly keep track of that in case there is a negative fallout for the celebrities kind of uh, whatever personal life, then they will try to disassociate themselves from the celebrities. Lot of companies in USA struggle with that because there will be rappers, there will be football players, NBA players. They will sponsor. They will put a lot of money or pay a lot of money to those celebrities to sponsor their product, and suddenly one day they'll make a comment and your brand has a negative review in the negative perception in the market, right? So that is something yes, companies do track. So again, it is not only for British Airways, it is for almost a big airways like American Airlines also. Not only related to this, where they're looking for whether business customers will look for power socket. One key thing they looked into whether people will like internet. There was a research on leg space also, right? Because if you look into those pictures, right, 90s, 60s, 80s, you look into the airlines, you search on Google and look into those pictures, the kind of leg space they used to have, right? Now some manager in the those airlines said that okay, we can save leg space, try to squeeze them, right? And we can put much more. Obviously, that has a lot to do with Boeing and Airbus came up with new aircrafts which can carry much more weightage. Now they thought of putting many more seats, right? Basically adding capacity, reducing the leg space. That was one research they did. They did something or power upgrade they did on internet availability, when actually internet in 90s or 2000 internet was like kind of most of the customers are kind of experimenting with internet, and most of the results said that okay, they will be comfortable with when if you, because as a traveler I cannot assume that okay, because right now I'm happy with my whatever sitting arrangement. If somebody comes and says that okay, will you be happy in the, let's say if I reduce it by certain measurement, right? I actually cannot visualize, right? And they said uh, like kind of okay, I don't think that will be a big problem. But actually when the companies went on and implemented that, there is a big backlash against this kind of big aircraft companies. You are looting business consumers, you are looting economic consumers, you are taking the same money and we do not have leg space, right? And obviously then other marketing strategy they implemented, they started putting like additional fees. If you want a much more leg space, there will be few seats in the center, in the first, in the end of the aircraft, where you can pay more and take those seats, right? So basically they were able to tackle that scenario. But that was actually actual problem happened, right? When they went on and asked the customers, will you be okay, right? Because when you ask customers to visualize, actually what they could have done, they could have done the actual sitting arrangement, asked customers to be there, right, for 2 hours or 3 hours or 8 hours. If a customer is just looking into in 5 or 10 minutes, because when you are somebody is traveling for 8 hours or 10 hours uh, in between country flight, the requirement will be completely different, right? And that is something actually they could have done a prototype and they could have done those kind of testing. So if you go and do just a survey based research in that kind of, that will be a big failure, right? And actual that thing happened, and that is something we discuss during the research design. What kind of research fits what kind of our purpose, right? Survey looks easy, but it might not work always, right? Same thing with the banks. Look into our Indian banks, right? ICICI, Axis, those were like took the market because they were the first one to have that digitalization, right? They had the money. SBI, all those your public sector banks had that kind of money to invest in internet banking, online banking. They did not do that. Same thing happened in USA. Your banks like Wells Fargo and smaller banks were able to compete with the bigger American banks, right? Because they were the first ones to implement this kind of technology, internet banking. People were able to withdraw money, people were able to transfer money without standing in the line, right? And they started opening accounts, and the bank growth was like exponential, right? So that is something again, like kind of a, they did a market research and they asked like the bigger banks whether you will be liking to do online transactions, right? People said no, I'll not put my money, somebody can steal. Because people that time 2000, actually in 2000 that big Y2K trouble happened, right? So people were little bit apprehensive about using internet, using online transactions, and that was the bad time to do those kind of surveys, right? And they did that kind of survey. They thought that okay, no, customers won't be doing online transactions. And just 3 years, 5 years down the line, and the new banks which came, they started implementing online banking, online transactions, and people are happy to do that. So that is something you have to remember. What exactly uh, COVID has happened. If you just do a right now a research on launching a new vehicle, obviously right now the situation is a little better. Back in 2020, right? That time, that major intention right now, the customer's mindset will be not to travel, right? Or if you do a certain research on tourism, right? So the kind of information insights which you will get might not be correct 2 years or 3 years down the line, right? Always remember, and that is something which we'll discuss different type of research designs. For some things, you have to know the timing of the research when actually you are doing, right? Any questions on this? Yes, sorry.
Sir, talking about the automobile part, sir, actually there are many parts which is inside the automobile before assembly. So in that cases, sir, the company who are manufacturing the small parts, they can also take the survey from the B2B customers, sir, from the big businesses, like suppose TVS is supplying the Volt and many parts, sir, Bosch is supplying the spark plug. They also took the survey from the Tata and all, sir, for their
They no,
products, sir.
they do not do a survey. There is something called product testing, right? So they ask the customers, right, B2B customers to visit their site, visit their manufacturing assembly, and use the new product, right? So let's say Intel is started with a new processor, right? So they will give certain samples, certain pilot products to Dell or Acer or Sony. They'll test those kind of new chips, right? And they'll like give their opinions, right? How it is performing, right? And accordingly, they will put a launch. So in that case, survey won't work. So in that case, it will be like a product testing by the user. User basically, in this case, it will be companies.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So last part we talked about the last slide mostly on the timing part when actually you are doing research. Here it is basically on the message part, right? It is basically on the advertisement and communication messages. HSBC put a research on $10 million on rebranding. They started the campaign name was assume nothing, right? Exactly what actually was going to talk. Do not assume anything. That do not assume the interest rate. Do not assume that okay the interest rate is better in your bank, or do not assume that your saving or the credit card rates are better in your bank, right? So the intention was that, and they created lot of advertisement, lot of teasers, trailers for that message. The main idea is do not assume that your banking or your transactions are better than HSBC. So you can always switch to HSBC. That was the intention of advertisement. But when actually translated into the foreign like Japanese, Chinese, other languages, right, Mandarin and all those things, actually the translation become like do nothing. So what will happen? HSBC after that do nothing, right? So it was a negative connotation which happened, right? Rather than assume nothing for your whatever banking facilities you have, you can always look into new or better kind of brands like HSBC. It became HSBC do nothing, right? So that was a complete message failure. Same thing with Pepsi. So the idea was come alive with Pepsi. So when it was translated in Chinese, the slogan came as bringing your dead ancestors back to life. Same thing, I think slogan could be generally this will raise the dead, right? So which was again a negative connotation. Same thing, mostly with this you have to remember whenever you are making a slogan, and if it is a multinational company, right? Or let's say you are a let's say you make a kind of a communication or advertisement message in Hindi, and it is getting translated into let's say southern languages or any other regional languages. Make sure that somebody do a actual reading of that. What is the meaning of that? In Indian brands also that mistake has happened. They have created advertisement message in Hindi and they have just translated into Tamil or Telugu, and it will have a very negative meaning. Same thing here which has happened, and mostly whenever English get translated to Asian and mostly Chinese and Japanese language, it will have a very different meaning and sometimes a negative or bad meaning, right? And that is again, it is not a problem with marketing research. It is about the how you are implementing that, right? The ideal thing would have been you could have hired those creative agencies in those countries to create a similar message for you, right? Not literally translating the English message to those languages. Okay. So any questions up to this point? Okay. So there can be like again There can be other method of dividing marketing research, but what we'll be focusing on the project, what we'll be taking on these kind of research areas. So problem identification research, right? That is kind of exploratory research. What is happening in the for my company, for my competitors, right? It can be on the some forecasting also. Okay, what does the market look like for next 5 years? For let's say organic foods, for electric vehicles, for online transactions, for insurances, right? Or problem solving. You have existing problem. Your product prices, people are not buying. You have changed your prices, people are not buying. The new product which you have launched, the segment which you have targeted, they are not happy with your product, right? Or it can be promotions, like I said, you have created promotional material, you have a certain KPI matrices, you are not able to achieve that. Imagine that you have created a website or you have modified your website and you had a target that visitors will increase by 10%, but year on year growth has been only 2% or 5%, right? Then you have to think of that what went wrong and what are the things you need to be done, right? Or on the channel side, so some CMO or director, marketing director said that okay, uh, increase the dealer kind of commission by 5% or 10%, assuming that your overall revenue will increase or overall market share will increase, but it has not happened, right? So that is where you are trying to carry out certain problem solving, right? You are trying to find out why it did not happen, trying to get into the root cause and trying to solve that, right? Okay. Again, these are the top 5 kind of high level steps in marketing research, or again, same in business research also. Identification of the problem, right? We'll try to discuss through an example, right? Any of you who have done a internship of any company, try to like give a project topic and we'll try to take that. Anyone? Any internship project?
So I had an internship with SBI where I had to identify the reasons for high footfall in SBI branches and to find out digital solutions to decrowd the branches.
Okay, so basically finding digital solutions to decrowd the branches, right? So it is getting like kind of heavily crowded most of the days. See, the management intention. So you did choose the topic on your own, or the management gave you the topic?
So the company gave me the topic.
Company gave the topic. Okay. So the idea can be again hypothetically the idea can be or the management problem can be different, right? So let us discuss that first. What is the difference between a management problem and marketing research problem, right? In this case, the problem might again hypothetically, I do not know what are the actual challenges they is facing, but let's say the problem, the biggest challenge is that most of their branches are getting crowded almost in weekdays and towards the end of the month, and that is where the higher management started to think how like what kind of digitalization or try to identify the branches where much overcrowding is happening, and accordingly let's say trying to do a digitization or anything they can do to decrowd those branches, right? So that is the decision problem, right? What they need to do to decrowd the branches or why it is happening, right? Now when I convert, right, it has to be little modified. What? Because see, the problem is whenever management decision problem is always what decision they are going to take, right? So I cannot go and say that okay, I did a statistical method or I did this, so this is the result. So they might not be interested in me. So they need the answers in terms of what exactly they need to do to solve their problem, right? It is a decision problem. So if you see, should a new product be launched? Yes or no? As simple as that. Should the advertisement campaign be changed? Whatever advertisement campaign, whether it be changed? If yes, then what kind of changes? Right? Should the price of the brand be increased? Yes or no? If yes, By how much? 5%, 2%, 10%. So that is something only they want to know, right? Now what will happen if I take this last question, like should the price of the product be increased? Like if I go and say that okay, this is my marketing research program, and if I start asking customers, should the price of the product be increased? 100% of them will say no. Nobody is going to pay you more money, right? So that cannot be my marketing research program. So in this case, if let's say SBI has like kind of overcrowding of problem, I should not go and ask the customers what SBI is going to do to reduce crowd, right? So what they'll tell, I have the savings account or I have the loan account, I have to go to the branch, right? But that I have to change it to a marketing research program. The regions for customers visiting, first I have to find out the recency, frequency of their visits, how many times generally they visit, how recently they have visited, right? Then the regions for visit, right? Different customer segments will have different regions, right? And that is something I can ask. I cannot go and ask that, okay, why you are visiting your SBI branch regularly? Why visiting 5 times or 10 times in a month or a quarter, right? So remember, what I'm going to answer to my management, that is my management decision problem. At the end of my report, at the end of my project, I should be able to in a position to say that, okay, these are the things or these are the things you have to do to reduce your crowding in your branches, right? Potential solutions, right? There won't be any perfect solution. These are the potential things you can do to kind of reduce. But for me to give that insight, I need to collect data. And to get the collect data, how do I put those questions? That will be my marketing research problem. So in this particular case, if I look into pricing, I'm not going to look into ask that question that okay, whether customers are going to pay more for this product. Nobody is going to say yes to that question. What will be my research question? To determine the price elasticity of demand. So I'll create different product profiles with different pricing, maybe a conjoint analysis, and try to look into what kind of product at what pricing customers are choosing. So that is something I think most of you know, right? Then if you go to a shopping mall or a cinema theater, right? So there will be always this kind of popcorns, small, medium, and large packages. And they ideally put those prices so that you will always go for the large packages because the sizes will be shown like that. Okay, you'll come in your mind why I should pay 120 rupees for a medium when 150 rupees I'm getting a large, right? But almost you might not need a medium or you might not need a large popcorn packet. But again, the structure products are structured in a such way that you will always do that mistake. But if I go and say that, okay, will you buy this product for 150 rupees? Nobody will say yes. Or if I increase by 10, if I use that word itself increase, customer will say no. So that cannot be my market research problem. But going back and I have to tell to my management, okay, for this product, 160 rupees, for this product, 150 rupees. And that is where the change in your decision problem based on the answer, management is going to take a decision, yes or no, for any kind of questions. Here in market research problem should be designed in a such a way which will help you to collect information. So this is kind of subject or the topic what she has taken. Again, we can debate a lot and ideally we should do a literature review before jumping into the marketing research problem. But again, one potential uh, problem can be to identify the regions customers visit, to identify the regions for which customers visit SBI branches, to identify the recency frequency of visit, right? So those can be my marketing research problem because once I identify that, then only I can see that which are the product or which are the services can be digitized. Some of the services cannot be digitized, right? Right now, let's say if you talk about the pensions, right? whether that pension with on a particular date on a Thursday of the last Thursday of the month, people crowd SBI branches because they have to withdraw their pensions. But if I say that okay, the digitalization is a solution for that, it might not work because most of the older people who are into 65, 70s, they are not comfortable till now also using a smartphone or using a website to online banking. Right. So that is which is important because I have collected data. Okay, for a particular segment of people, this was the problem, this was the challenge, where digitalization will work or not. Then my follow-up questions can be that how many of them use smartphones, how many of them use let's say this kind of online transactions. Then when I realize that okay, only 10% is 20% of them, then that insight I can give. Either I have to kind of find a way to improve the enrollment into online transactions or online banking, or I have to keep a like kind of a but out of let's say in a single branch 10,000 customers or 20,000 customers, I'll specify rather than 20,000 customers coming in 2 days or 3 days, I can specify account number this to this particular day, account number this to this particular day. So that can be a potential solution. Again, I'm just giving certain suggestions, but actual market research need to be done. But it cannot be that okay, why you are overcrowding the ban. That cannot be my market research problem. I want to find an answer for that. Why overcrowding is happening? For that to know, so what does overcrowding means? I have to find out. That means in a per day, when SBI is telling okay, the branch is overcrowded, whether it is 500 customers visiting at a time is overcrowded or 200 customers visiting the counter is overcrowded. Then I will go back to customers and find out how frequently they visit, how recently they have visited, what are the regions for their visit. And for each of those regions, then I have to find out what kind of segments, whether there is a linkage between those segments. For a home loan account, which is the segment who is visiting more? If that segment is kind of familiar with online transactions, online banking, can the complete loan process can be digitalized? Can it be done without those persons visiting the banks? If yes, then that can be a solution, right? So that is what we have to remember, the difference between what management wants and how we are going to ask questions to our customers, whether through a qualitative research or a quantitative research. That is the big difference between management research.
Sir,
Yes.
in case of finance, sir, we will be determining that if the company is performing good or not, right? The problem will be in case of finance.
Finance means, can you please repeat the question?
If I am doing a finance research, then the problem will be why the company is not performing or why the stock is not performing. This can be the problem, right?
Equity research mostly into the equity or stocks or shares.
Fine.
Finance
If it is finance research,
finance research
Yes, sir.
again. Can you please keep on mute? Yeah. Finance research can be of different types. One can be corporate finance, which is looking into the finance, says what about the company, let's say how much debt, how much different kind of loans, where is your inventory, right? Whether my inventory turnover is good or bad, right? So then you have to find out that okay, for inventory turnover, where is the problem happening? Whether it is the receiving or sending the material out of warehouses, what are the key challenges or where are your troubles are happening, right? So that can be exploratory research. So, but the management problem will be why whether why my inventory turnover is less. My competitor's inventory turnover is around 6, and my inventory turnover is 2. Or it can be something like a loan, like kind of a mergers or acquisitions. Most of the finance research will be some part, not most, into mergers and acquisition. Let's say Reliance is looking into certain e-commerce companies, right? They want to venture into certain e-commerce, right? There are hundreds of startups in India. Which is the startup I should kind of acquire? That can be finance research. So now what you'll do, you'll go and study all those 100 startups. You'll get those information. Now you have to link what will be beneficial. You will project their growth rate. You will project their kind of how much potential they have each of those startups, and whether they align with your Reliance or whichever company is going to acquire with your vision. So that can be one kind of finance research where your mergers or acquisition kind of research happens. Obviously, there are a lot of other things also. It is not only about the legal things has to be there. Then the kind of country, right? I cannot just go and hire something in the Pakistan or some Bangladesh, right? So those are the challenges. But apart from that, general will be like which company to hire, right? Company management decision problem will be which e-commerce startup I should acquire in 2022. So you have given a list of 100 companies. Now your problem will be to find the information. What kind of information you are going to collect to get that answer to your management? So information might be about the growth potential, information about the recurring revenue, what they're getting, information about the management, existing management, information about the like kind of employees, organizational structure, any kind of loopholes. Have they done some kind of mistakes in the past?
Sir, after this research, are we in the implementation part also? That if a merger acquisition is
No.
okay.
That decision will be taken by higher management. Your only role is to give that information to the higher management. Implementation part, research analyst won't. So like let's say any this kind of research is right. So it will be handed over to the marketing manager or product manager. So they will take it forward. You'll be part of the team, but implementation will be with the product manager. Or in this particular case, it will be the like kind of whoever is the director for merger and acquisitions. Implementation won't be in your.
Okay. Okay.
So that is the first thing when you are talking about the how much time we have. Okay, already have completed. So we'll go about the processes in the next class, right? I'll share the slides. Please go through it so that when the next class, so when we discuss the same thing, it will be easier to discuss, right? So before I close, any last questions?
So will you share the topics like the syllabus?
Yes, session plan I'll be sharing. I'll put that in the Google Classroom. Yes.
Sir, attendance, sir, miss my attendance.
Roll number.
Sir, 6, sir, Anmol Das.
Okay. Okay.
So I also missed the attendance.
Roll number.
2096.
Okay.
2096. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Chalo, take care. We'll meet next class.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.